Of Jody Landers, definitely. You may just remember he ran for mayor. He has been on city council back in the day. A graduate of Morgan, a lifelong resident of Baltimore City. He was also the executive vice president of the Greater Baltimore Board of Realtors. So he knows a thing or two about real estate and property taxes and all those fun aspects of city life. Dan Cosgrove. Wow, this is a man I met in 2006, just picking up garbage on the streets of Pigtown. Just a guy I admire a lot, and I give him so much credit for making this movie. And you know, it's bold, it's from a different perspective totally, but this is definitely a guy I admire, and I mean, just I can't say enough about him. We're going to talk to the maker of the movie, Dan Cosgrove, this awesome man, for a few minutes. Then we're going to watch the movie. Then we're going to have a panel discussion, and then you can ask some questions too. So I give you Dan and Jody.
I want to begin by thanking everybody that came out tonight. The city's depopulation is a very serious problem. It's not a glamorous subject, so to see this many caring people to show up tonight to talk about this problem, I thank all of you here. And I thank Jody too. Thank you so much for emceeing this.
I appreciate being asked. Dan, by the way, is a graduate magna cum laude of UMBC with a degree in political science, and he was elected the president of the Washington Village Development Association in 2006. And I think that in this movie, what's really significant about it to me is, one, you know, before you can address a problem, you have to focus on what the problem is. I think one of the things this movie shows is we have some problems that need to be addressed. And I'm hoping that we can engage in a dialogue after you see the movie about real solutions and ideas for some solutions. The other piece of this is, I think this is really significant because this kind of video and these kinds of devices are extremely useful in neighborhoods being able to solve and address problems. So you'll see how Dan has used this video in terms of highlighting some of the problems in his neighborhood, but being able to get information out and present it visually, graphically to people, I think can really help in a lot of instances in solving problems in neighborhoods. So I have a few questions that I'm going to ask Dan.
Can I just make a comment? What we had playing before we got up on stage was a sample of videos that we've done throughout the years to try to address some of the problems in the community. And the video camera that we use is that one right there. It's selling on eBay now for under $300. So extremely useful tool in having problems addressed.
And probably within the budget of many neighborhood associations around the city. So Dan, what attracted you to settle in the Washington Village, Pigtown area in the first place?
Well, Pigtown, back when I got involved with it back in 2005, it was the last part of Baltimore City that was still within walking distance of the inner harbor that hadn't had a renaissance yet. And you had the stadiums down there, you had a lot of investment coming in, and there was talk about, there's actually waterfront Pigtown, there's talk about that being developed. There was talk about, what was it, the Gateway International Racetrack. There was talk about putting that down there, maybe even moving the Preakness down there. So the neighborhood had a lot of promise. It still has a lot of promise. And so that attracted me to the area, and I started buying houses down there.
And just in hindsight, do you think you were overly optimistic about the conditions in the neighborhood now?
No.
With your experience?
No. No. Pigtown is a community that should work, okay? And the thing that I went in with was the idea that city government would work the same as the county government. And I want to give you some examples. First house I buy down there, within the first week I noticed there's a guy 4 doors down dealing drugs. Within the first year of me being down there, the guy is arrested with a shoebox full of heroin. Now, I don't think it's expecting too much that that person is going to go to jail. The state's attorney's office, under Pat Jessame, just dropped all the charges. Within the past 6 months, the SWAT team went down there and raided his house. Now, when they raided the house, his inventory was low. but there was residue and there was enough, a little bit of stuff left over, and there were scales and packaging material, obvious to any reasonable person what he does. Now, guess what happened to him? $55 court cost. The guy's been dealing drugs for 7 years, for me to see, $55. I've paid more in traffic tickets. So, my expectation, I think the expectation of many of the urban homesteaders that came into Pigtown was that the city government would do what it is that governments are supposed to do, and that's provide public safety. And they're not doing that. And particularly when you start talking about the drug dealing, over and over, we just saw people that would get arrested, charges dropped, get arrested, charges dropped. And then, if they were found guilty, supervised probation, they never went away. And after 6 years of the people in our group pushing back on all the drug dealers and pushing back on the prostitutes and pushing back on the junkies, they never went away. So guess what? We went away. Now, the problem for the city is if the college-educated, middle-class tax base flees to the safety of the surrounding counties, how are you going to pay for rec centers? Are the drug dealers going to pay for the rec centers? Are the prostitutes? Mm-mm.
Do you obviously were motivated to make this film to highlight these problems. Have you seen any kind of difference since you've been using video to illustrate some of these neighborhood problems?
Oh, yeah.
In terms of responsiveness and getting problems solved?
Yeah, and the funny thing is, I'll tell you another real story. We had 4 drug dealers. We did a video called Pigtown's Most Wanted. Get them on YouTube. Now, the drug dealers see the video. They come down when we're having a community cleanup. They're laughing at it. Yeah, we think we look kind of good on that. Channel 2 News sees it. They shoot the video. I mean, they come down and do a story about us, about the video and all this kind of stuff, and then they put the images and the real names of these drug dealers on the evening news. Okay? The drug dealer, one of the drug dealers' parents saw it, read the guy of the Riot Act. And here's something that's interesting. The guy wasn't afraid of being arrested. He wasn't afraid of going to court because he had done it 12.5 times. Big deal. I get in a revolving door down at the courthouse. I'm in and out, a little bit of a hassle, and I'm back on the street dealing drugs. But what he became afraid of was us videotaping him, and then Channel 2 putting his face and name up on Channel 2 News, on the evening news, and then his mother would see it. So eventually what ended up pushing those guys out of the community were our video cameras.
So you hear that, all the parents out there? A little bit of threatening. Keep your children in check. Do you have any specific recommendations for improving conditions now in neighborhoods like Washington Village, Pigtown? And what advice would you give to other community activists in terms of solving problems in their neighborhoods and getting results?
I think the one thing that's lacking in the city is accountability. You got that thing? You can hold people accountable. And the first time that we tried this was we had a doctor that bought a shopping center in the community, and he wanted to quickly flip that property for 3 times what he had paid for it, and he was just asking too much. The property wasn't selling. So we had a community meeting about it, and I said to the people at the meeting, I said, I don't know if what this is going to do. I don't know if we'll do anything. I don't even know if anybody's going to watch this video, but I'll get a video camera. We'll do a little video, and we'll put it up on YouTube. Well, we did that. We recorded on a Saturday. I uploaded on a Monday. Steve Levine at Fox 45 saw it. He was down there on a Wednesday doing the exact same story. Plus, he mentioned that we had done a video. Then he goes down to the doctor's office with camera in tow. And then when the doctor ended up on the evening news, it embarrassed him. It held him accountable. You are the property owner. It's your responsibility to keep this at a certain condition for the community. Because what we had was, we had homeless junkies moving into the bushes. The grocery store had closed. We had drug dealers that were camping out in the parking lot, and then the junkies would go panhandle for money, just come into the parking lot, buy their drugs, and go into the bushes behind the shopping center. Once Steve Levine showed up to that doctor's office, 2 days later, the doctor's down there instructing people, cut down the bushes, police, get these drug dealers out. He cleaned the whole place up and maintain it to the community standards. So that camera can hold people accountable, whether or not you're talking about a doctor who's, doesn't care about the community, he's just trying to make a quick buck, or the drug dealer on the corner, or, the hooker that's burning down that vacant property. We basically use that camera to put somebody within the frame and say, what you're doing to this community is wrong. And we're going to scream it to the world until somebody hears about this, or you change your behavior. And very effective tool.
Just to underscore this, it's kind of a related thing. There was a zoning change in our neighborhood dealing with installing a car wash on a gasoline station. It's very close to a main walking route for children going to and from Garrett Heights Elementary School. And I happened to be by, took a photograph of the sign, improperly posted, illegible, took it into the zoning board, took out the cell phone, and said, oh, by the way, this sign is improperly posted. Take my phone, they pass it down to all the zoning board members. Unfortunately, I ended up hurting myself because they decided they couldn't hear the case that day, and then they had to reschedule it. So, but it's a tremendous tool, whether it's a video or your camera, but getting that information to people who are in a position to make a difference is really important. One last question. You brought up drugs a number of times in this. What policies should the city and state be pursuing with respect to drug use and drug-related crime? Are we zero tolerance, more treatment, decriminalization, legalization? What, in your opinion?
I think you're asking the wrong question.
Okay.
And I think that this is a major problem in the city. I think people in positions of power and influence want to focus on the perceived needs of those that are self-destructive. And if you start asking those questions and going down that line of thought, it leads you to certain policies. I think the question instead should be, what do we need to do to make him not move out? The guy that has the master's degree in philosophy, the guy that gets up and goes to work every day, what do we need to do so that when he comes home from work, he's not being yelled at, saying that he's a snitch and that he's going to get shot and that, that he's the problem. So I think that the question needs to be changed. Do you want to continuously, almost obsessively, concern yourself with the problems or the perceived problems of people that are self-destructive? Because they are not only destroying themselves, and they don't care. They're destroying communities. And I'm going to give you another example. Let's talk about education. I don't care if you're a Democrat, Libertarian, Republican, everybody thinks education is a must. We don't want good schools, we want great schools. Now, would you define a good school as a school that has used condoms and used needles on the playground of an elementary school? Would that be considered a good elementary school? No. In Pigtown, at school 34, we had a situation where prostitutes at night would go to school 34 and use the playground as a toilet. They would dump used condoms and used needles on the playground, okay? We had somebody down there living behind the school, and also the prostitutes would stand in front of the school while school was in session, waiting to be picked up by Johns. In the afternoons, they would stand behind the school to get nooners. We had somebody living behind the school who started working with the police. The person living behind the school was an Anne Arundel County cop, okay? So the vice squad comes down, meets with this person, and they have a sting. Over 90 Johns and hookers arrested. The state's attorney's office, under Pat Chesame, only lets them all go except one. The reason one of the prostitutes were prosecuted was because she jumped in a car and dragged a cop about a block down the street. So what does that tell the hookers? Hey, I can keep doing what I'm doing and there's no consequences. Even if the police pick me up, once I go to court, I'm out. I'm in that revolving door, in and out. A little bit of a hassle, but I don't have to stop. Now, the prostitutes figured out who was doing it, who was working with the police. They took a brick and broke their rear window in their car. Okay, we have an Anne Arundel County cop living in the city. Guess what happened? They left. They took their tax dollars with them. About a year after all the hookers were let go, They were going into vacant houses and burning them down. And some of you saw the video up here, 1272 Washington Boulevard. An investor had dumped $100,000 into the community in that property and another one. After that burnt down, he left. So you've got prostitutes that are destroying themselves, burning houses down, pushing out investors, making Anne Arundel County cops feel uncomfortable living behind an elementary school, and they flee to the safety of the surrounding counties. So again, the question should not be, what do we have to do to try to meet the perceived needs of those that are self-destructing, but rather, what do we need to do to encourage people that are healthy to come into communities and help make those communities healthy?
Well, I think prosecution is obviously a part of it, but I think there needs to be a broader discussion about what policies we're pursuing in terms of drug treatment, interdiction, and
right. You know, but how are you going to pay for all that?
System. Well, I don't have the solutions. I'm just saying it's not, the prosecution is, we pay for that. So you're really feeling like the prosecution is really let you down.
This is what I think is going on in the city. This is, you know, I've gone to meetings for years with people, and there seems to be a sense that a good number of criminals, people that are regularly arrested, that these people are somehow victims. And since they are victims, they should not be incarcerated. And what you end up with are these people that have these outrageously long arrest records. And you'll see them in here. 50 feet long, 70 feet long. The one at the beginning where you say, and he's got a record that's 70 feet long. When I started this documentary, his record was 70 feet long. When I went up to the guardian angel and said, hey, can you hold this for me so I can videotape it? It was 80 feet long. Now it's almost 100 feet long. The guy's continuously being arrested, never goes to jail, okay? So that's showing you that people are in fact breaking the law, they're being arrested, and the courts are just letting them out. Okay, so what does that do? That makes the middle class taxpayer flee to the safety of the surrounding counties. And then the solution to all this criminality that's offered, the solution by people in positions of power and influence is, we need drug treatment, we need after-school programs, we need rec centers. How are you going to pay for it if your tax base is in the county? And then it goes right back to, well, the criminal's the victim because, you know, they did, you know, the government doesn't provide enough drug treatment. So that, okay. Like I said, I think the question needs to be changed. And if you get enough healthy people into these neighborhoods, then you build your tax base up, and then you can provide some of those other services. But if you've got a system, this revolving door in these courthouses, the people that can walk into a bank and get a 30-year mortgage for $200,000 aren't going to choose to live in a neighborhood with the illegal dirt bikes blowing down the road, where there's prostitutes, junkies, hookers, where there's random crime. I was just talking to somebody tonight, has a daughter, young daughter moved into, I think it was Kent, he was saying. Out of the blue, this couple days ago, they get jumped and black eyes and all this. So, and here's another thing that people don't talk about. Baltimore City isn't that big. I don't care where you are in the city. Baltimore County is no more than 15 minutes away. So let's say you want to, one of the things when doing this documentary, one of the things that I heard was, well, people will move into the city for the cultural amenities. So let's take somebody like me. I like Orioles games and Ravens games. And let's say I want to live somewhere where I can walk to the stadiums. Let's say South Carey Street and Washington Boulevard. Walk to the stadiums in 20 minutes, right? Well, if I live there, first of all, my property taxes are going to be twice what they are in the county. On Sunday nights at 7 o'clock, like clockwork, here comes those 50 to 60 guys on those illegal dirt bikes, yelling racial slurs, driving like maniacs and spitting and kicking cop cars, and it's, you know, and then other nights you're going to see hookers out there, and then you're going to see drug debris, and I don't want to live with all that. So I can jump in my car, drive down Washington Boulevard. In less than 10 minutes, I'm in Baltimore County, and my property taxes are cut in half. I don't have to deal with those illegal dirt bikes. I don't have to deal with the hookers. I don't have to deal with the, you know, the idea of sending my kid to an elementary school that has dirty needles and condoms on the playground. Okay, and I don't have to give up the Orioles and Ravens. I can drive there in 20 minutes instead of walk there in 20 minutes.
Well, let's hope, I think we should get to the film. Let's hope that this film and the discussion that we can have can lead to maybe some solutions and suggestions. I personally, as a lifelong city resident, don't want to just abandon the city to lawlessness to people who don't care. I feel more about the city and the residents in the city that I grew up in to allow that to happen. it's not, the solutions aren't easy. They're difficult because they cost and they cost in a number of ways, societally, financially. But let's get to the film, and then we'll get to,
I've got a comment and an announcement to make. You know, you say the problems are complex and, you know, not easily solved, but on a personal level, they are very easily solved. You rent a U-Haul, you pack it up, you drive 10 minutes down the road, boom. All the problems are solved, and you cut your property taxes. I was just told that if anybody's parked in the parking lot across the street on Eastern Avenue, the empty lot, that you need to move your car, you'll get towed. So.
And take that seriously.
Yeah.